Hey YouTube, Awesome Writer here. Welcome to my review for DonBrothers vs. Zenkaiger. This is going to be not really a different review, but it's not going to be super in-depth review, just because I primarily watched this to see what they did with Zenkaiser Black. I sort of kind of heard spoilers about it, not really spoilers, but I heard information about it, but I wanted to wait and judge for myself and see it. Obviously I will be talking about the movie at large, but I wasn't so into this movie that I was like wanting to digest every detail, because I kind of stopped watching Toku movies years ago because I don't like them, and so I watched this one though because I was legitimately interested in seeing what they did with this, and I think I made the right decision. I don't think I'm going to go back to Toku movies after this. I'm not saying this movie was overall awful, but it definitely disappointed me. So let's talk about it. We'll talk about the Zenkaiser Black stuff at the end, but needless to say, they didn't really give us an answer or a satisfying answer, at least that I would consider. The movie goes basically the way we knew from the second trailer, I think it was, that basically showed us it's I Party with Victorious, where it's effectively like a Zenkaiser movie and then a DonBrothers movie. They felt more like episodes. Like, honestly, the Zenkaiser part felt kind of like a fun 20-minute straight-to-DVD special, YouTube special they put up in terms of the general story and everything. And the DonBrothers one felt more like a Returns movie, a Returns episode. So they're separate stories with some loose connections, and then they kind of throw everyone together at the end for the shallow team-up stuff. And I wouldn't say it's overall awful or anything. It's just not the greatest thing. And I'm mixed on one hand. Like, on one hand, you don't get a little bit of that messy Toku plot by keeping them separate, and you can have two succinct stories. But on the other hand, you're missing out on the opportunity of some interactions throughout the whole movie, as well as the unique opportunity of having these two mythologies blend, which I'll touch on more at the beginning. So, I'm going to go over the Zenkaiser part rather quickly, because that was the part I was least into. It's basically a classic of the week Zenkaiser episode plot, where you have them coming back, and the whole place is ruled by this Mochi monster of the week, who's infected Kaiser, who's ruling over them, and you get some fun Zenkaiser hijinks. I liked Zenkaiser as a series okay. I, on occasion, enjoyed the filler episodes. The series kind of wore out its welcome for me, not in an overly negative way, just kind of in a, like, I've had enough of this type of deal. So, I wasn't that excited about this. There was some funny-ish moments, but it wasn't really my jam. But if you're a huge Zenkaiser fan and you were looking for more Zenkaiser fun that felt like a classic of the week episode, you'll probably enjoy this. There were some fun beats there for that. Just wasn't my jam. There was one interesting scene, which was one of my favorite scenes, was at the beginning of the episode, where they were getting ready to go off and fight the monster, and Kaito like turns around and he sees like a flash of like the DonBrothers world, and that led me to think there was going to be more interesting stuff about the characters, maybe inferring something, I don't know, we'll see. But that was the Zenkaiser half. And then after we leave them, we pick up with DonBrothers, more of an epilogue, and basically the gist of it is Don Momotaro gets his memory back. Zenkaiser gives him a message and says, your memories will be returning shortly, the DonBrothers need your help. We need your help! And the funniest part about that was when he said this ramen will self-destruct. I thought that was funny. But he gets his memories back, and then he goes around and sees what the DonBrothers are up to, as we pick up with the DonBrothers being led by Jiro, and we get a moment with each of them as we see what they're up to, and at the end of each meeting, all of them say they want to talk to him for some reason, which leads to something. And I will say, as a positive for this movie, I think that both halves of the story kind of nailed the tone and structure of a Zenkaiser and DonBrothers story, Zenkaiger and DonBrothers story. So if you're a fan of both series, it's easy to slip into these, and I think they did a good job having these nice character moment scenes with the DonBrothers characters, which is what the series is known for. And we see where everyone is. Yellow with their manga, Blue has a cram school, Yellow, I did Yellow. What's his name? Pink. Kiji he's like a crazy boss, like delving into his usual shtick. And then the Black Ranger and Sononi own like a shop, like a bakery or something. I don't remember if it's food or bakery, whatever, it doesn't matter. But they own a shop, and they're not on the run anymore, but like Black Ranger kind of misses it, which comes around at the end. And Jiro effectively has become rich. He's really he loves his role as leader, and he has this really well-oiled system, and he's basically set all the other characters up for this happiness, and they feel like they just want to go about their lives now. That's what they wanted to talk about. They want to stop being DonBrothers, and then so they do, and then Don Momotaro is the only DonBrother, and then he gets killed, and that inspires them to all want to be DonBrothers again. And then Momotaro is revived by Sonoi, and basically it's like Jiro wasn't a good leader, he was being selfish, and we need to be ourselves. We stopped being ourselves and being DonBrothers for ourselves, and we need to do that again. And they reunite the DonBrothers. And then that's when the two episodes converge not long after that, with the two monsters teaming up and the two teams teaming up. And, you get all your team-up action, if that's the thing you enjoy, the posing and the explosions and the power-up, which I don't think the power-up's that great. I think the sword's pretty cool, like the design of it, the color scheme, but the power's honestly kind of pretty lame. They're kind of like the last few years, it's kind of like them just wearing each other's vests. But, not that that's entirely unappealing, but the whole spectacle of posing and all that's just not my thing. But, you know, it's some good stuff there for people that are into that. So then they defeat the monsters, and, you know, they go their separate ways. The Zenkaisers have, like, a wrap-up lunch, and then they're like, oh, we should go on an apology tour for Tukaiser, I think. And then the Donbrothers are back to their regular status quo with Jiro. He's in the hospital, and he sees his fake girlfriend again. I don't know what that means. And then it seems like Sonoi died. Maybe he sacrificed his life force for Momotaro. I don't know. I really didn't care at that point. But yeah, it's basically like 2 little mini movies and then the team-up movie, and then with very little reveal about Zenkaiser. Like I said, for the things I liked, I think they did a good job on both halves, feeling like an episode for that, so if you're a fan of both series, you'll probably enjoy that. There were some funny moments here and there. I liked some of the interactions with DonBrothers. I did find it funny that Black Ranger missed being a fugitive, and at the end of the episode, his like new epilogue is that him and Sononi were going around putting up wanted posters of themselves. I thought that was really funny. So yeah, there's some good team-up action at the end and stuff like that. But the 2 overall negatives I have is, before I get to the Zenkaiser Black of it all, is the DonBrothers stuff. You know, I get why they did it, like setting up Momotaro as back and basically resetting the status quo to a degree so that all the Rangers are there, probably to have them on board and ready for any future projects, whether it's a Returns movie or the next crossover or whatever. And in regards to that, knowing that that's the reason they probably did it, I'm fine with the way they did it for the most part, you know, just to get them back in place. But I'm not a fan of what they did in 2 ways. Number one, I don't like what they did with Jiro. You know, Jiro for the most part annoyed me for most of the series when he was actually around, but I really like what they did with him in the finale. I thought he was a really well-balanced performance, and turning him into this unlikable character in this movie for the purpose of the plot, you know, I don't feel like I was invested enough to know whether it felt like it made sense for the character, but I didn't like it, because that was one of the smaller things I was looking forward to seeing in this movie, was actually getting to see this character behave like a normal human being, and we delved into him being kind of this, not antagonist of the story, but kind of a douche in this story, and I didn't like what they did there, kind of throwing him under the bus for the sake of this story. I think it undermined the development, from my opinion. And also, I just don't like them digging up the DonBrothers ending. I know that they're going to do all these Returns movies and stuff, but I like the way DonBrothers ended. It was bittersweet, I was satisfied with the conclusion. I don't like digging it up and kind of, you know, undoing it to a degree. It's kind of the reason I don't watch those post-writer movies anymore. I mean, like I said, I don't watch Toku movies, period, but I don't watch those, like, post-stories anymore, because, like, I loved endings like Gaim and Build. They were kind of these more unique endings that made you think and left on kind of a bittersweet conclusion, and then you dig them up for more stories and forms, and I'm not a fan of that. Like I said, I understand why they did it, and I'm fine with, like, where we left it in case they return again, but I just wish they hadn't dug it up. But then you have the Zenkaiser Black involved. All we get is a scene where Zenkaiser Black shows up, and they go like, oh, there are 2 Kaitos? Are you a twin? No. And then he just says, I'm the true hero of my world. And they're like, oh, okay. Has she been bitten? No, but Philip has. Oh, okay. That was what it was. That was it. And then they move on about their business. I think that there's some things, I think what they did is just kind of left some things there for you to maybe make your own story. I guess what you should just imply is that he is a variant of Kaito from the DonBrothers world that went on some sort of hero's journey and sort of went into like this post, you know, main journey status where he gets this cool new White Ranger version of his costume. Maybe that flash with, this is maybe me reading too much into anything, but that flash with Kaito seeing the DonBrothers world implies that this is a future version of Kaito, a far future, when his journey's done. I don't know. I was very disappointed in it. Toku does this all the time and I hate it. It's one of the reasons I don't watch movies, I watch regular movies. I don't watch Toku movies. It's just, they're so bad at stories and lore, and it's just frustrating. And I think in this case, I was extra disappointed only because I think they had a lot of missed opportunity here. And it's a bit of a mixed thing, because on the one hand, I was very interested that they were carrying over elements from Zenkaiser, because Sentai doesn't really do that. Each series is kind of self-contained into its own universe, except for when they want to do team-ups and they pretend it's all in the same universe. It's a hot mess, guys. But regardless, it's basically a reset every year. We don't do like Power Rangers where we're building on the same universe. To be fair, we very rarely acknowledge that, but you know what I mean. It's more like self-contained type of deal. So this was new territory for Sentai, and I was interested to see how they tackle it. But then the farther we got into DonBrothers, the more I became invested with DonBrothers' story, and I was ultimately glad the sort of sequel-y elements didn't seep into it, because DonBrothers' story was strong enough on its own. That being said, from the beginning, I was still really interested to see, like, how is Zenkaiser tied to this? How are the gears tied to it? You know, is there any, like, deeper answers there? I was still interested in it. And I wasn't as upset when they didn't address it in the finale of the series, because I actually kind of liked that. I'm like, okay, we solved the DonBrothers story for DonBrothers' story's sake, and we let that be DonBrothers' story. And then we're going to do this stuff in the team-up movie, and maybe do this really cool thing where we can blend together the mythologies and answer some questions and maybe build something. And then we did the same Toku crap we always do. I mean, I'm not as invested in Sentai's mythology to be so upset, but I'm definitely very disappointed because, again, it's not a very satisfying answer. But at the same time, also, I think there was some missed potential here. They could have done something really cool where they came up with a cool reason as to why these two stories were sort of tied together in a way, both to make a really cool, unique crossover movie that felt interesting, but also they could have built something from here. They could have built more interesting stories for the future, and it just ended up being the same crap. It's far from the worst movie I've ever seen, but, you know, it's not the best. Like I said, there's kind of positive and negatives to the approach of what they did. You don't get an overly convoluted mess of a movie when you separate the stories, but at the same time you miss out on some of those interactions and the huge potential they missed by interweaving these stories. I did forget to mention another positive was there was some really fun interactions between the characters in the final fight scene, which was fun. And I guess it's maybe a little more different for them to have those interactions throughout the movie since the other four characters aren't real people. You know what I mean? Like, they're not actors. I mean, they are robots, so they're not alive. But you know what I mean? So, I don't know. Yeah, I wasn't a fan. I don't see going back to Toku movies after this. I'm not expecting us to delve any further into Zenkaiser Black after this. But again, I'm just mainly disappointed because I think there was a lot of potential with that. Honestly, I think I was really interested in the potential they had with that, and I think they squandered it. But anyways, guys, that's it for this one. Until next time, let me know what you thought if you watched this movie in the comments of the resolution of Zenkaiser Black. But don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and climb the steps and ring that bell so you can get notifications for all my videos. It's Awesome Writer, signing out.